After months of uncertainty and tense deliberations, U.S. President Donald Trump has finally signed a new deal allowing the resumption of the U.S. Sub-Saharan Africa Preferential Trade Pact, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA. But contrary to Africa's hopes for a 3-year extension, the agreement will now run just until December 2026.
It's difficult for business to plan for something that's over the next 8 months with the uncertainty of what comes in the next years. But that's something that we have to work with the U.S.
The landmark AGOA trade program, in place for more than 25 years, grants over 1,800 products from sub-Saharan Africa duty-free access to the United States, supporting economic growth and job creation across the continent.
It's a helpful instrument for some of our countries like South Africa, where we intend to increase the processing capacity and therefore the capacity to export more finished products.
AGOA negotiations were particularly fraught for South Africa. Pretoria's foreign policy positions placed it in the crosshairs of the Trump administration, and exclusion from the U.S. market would have hit the automotive and agricultural sectors especially hard. With the deal temporarily secure, South Africa now has breathing room to repair relations with Washington.
That creates a platform for us to continue engaging with the U.S., in particular Senate and Congress, about how AGOA would pan out going forward, what the structure would be, and essentially how we would continue to work around that.
At the same time, South Africa is deepening ties with other global partners.
Regardless of AGOA or any other development, South Africa should be diversifying its economy anyway. We shouldn't have to wait for scrutiny on AGOA before we decide to diversify. And I think this is now a decision that our government and business have taken. We do need to diversify.
Questions over reciprocal tariffs still remain unresolved. South Africa currently faces a 30% duty on certain exports to the United States. But officials are hopeful this can be renegotiated. Julie Shara, CGTN, Cape Town.
Now, of course, as we mentioned, Africa is cautiously welcoming the extension of that AGOA Act. And let's discuss why. Let's discuss the renewal of this trade pact going forward with Economist Sandile Swana. Great to have you with us on the show. Now, of course, the question that most are currently asking is why exactly should the news of an AGOA extension or renewal have any meaning with, of course, the global tariffs that President Donald Trump has imposed? They're, of course, still on the table. How do they impact this extension?
Thank you. The renewal of AGOA is just a sign for now of good intentions or goodwill from the United States of America. It does not immediately provide Africa with tangible net positive economic benefits. But what it possibly does, it gives some of them a window to look for alternative markets, because it's also for just a very short period, a record short period in actual fact.
Right, but it's interesting that you say goodwill, because U.S. officials have said that they plan to modernize AGOA to align, of course, with Trump's America First trade policy. They said they're going to demand for more market access for U.S. stakeholders. What's your take on what this could mean for African nations, whether there's goodwill there? Could we see significant changes to the AGOA Pact in light of that?
I expect significant changes. Remember that the approach of the Americans right now is transactional, where the old AGOA was relational. It was a long-term arrangement. Voluntary, it was unilateral and voluntary on the part of the Americans, although they did impose some of their foreign ideologies on Africans here and there. So there are going to be demands of the things that they are struggling to get, strategic minerals, and other things that they may be struggling to secure on the international stage because of the very same trade wars that they've been involved. So Africa is in for those types of negotiations. And bear in mind that in any case, the USA will not be alone at the negotiating table, because other trading partners are also looking for the same.
You're quite right. And that is the interesting part. But looking at what we've seen from Trump's administration so far, when you talk about going back to the negotiating table, how are African nations feeling about their position right now? And how has this all impacted Africa's outlook when it comes to trading with the U.S. going forward? How are African governments also looking at the U.S.-Africa trade relationship?
I think in your show here, I think it was Park Stow, our Minister of Trade, expressing a view that they are going to negotiate, but is actually on a trip to China to secure a much more wide-ranging trade with China. Our agricultural sector and automotive sector here in South Africa have already diversified to other markets successfully. So we have other neighbors like Lesotho that have been devastated by the tariffs, the reciprocal tariffs from Trump. So the SACU region, in this case, our region here in Southern Africa, is actually actively looking for alternative markets so that they don't negotiate under pressure with the Trump administration.
And I'd like just to get your opinion on how this, of course, will shine a light on AGOA going forward. Is it something that African governments have sort of let go of, or is it still important to African nations, like Lesotho?
Well, we have to look at the SACU strategy because Lesotho is within a broader trade customs union here. And South Africa is responsible to lead that trade union exactly in situations like this. My anticipation is that they are more likely to find an alternative market. Africa as a whole did not depend on AGOA. If you look at the numbers, the people who were very involved in AGOA were certain subsets of the South African market. South Africans were very dominant. 70–80% of that trade was in South Africa. So, and South Africa now knows that you cannot build a business. Even the European Union knows that you cannot build trade based on relationship with the United States.
Quite right. Well, thank you as always, sir, for those great insights. That, of course, was Sandile Swana joining us there in South Africa with some great insights.